Vanakkam Makkale. Hi everyone. I'm just going to do this video in English. Yes, and this video is somewhat about COVID. Also, it's going to be very long. I wanted to share some of my personal experience with this sort of quarantine life, lockdown situation that I have experienced quite a few times in my life. And it's actually not just me. I know a lot of people that has, and I know millions of people across the world that are facing and have dealt with and are dealing with this sort of life across the world to this date. I'd like to share my first-hand personal experience. I was actually born in a camp, displaced camp, and I experienced this quarantine shutdown life about 2-3 times in my childhood. One when I was around the age of 2 or 3, and again around the age of 5, and the last time was around the age of 8 or 9. And they were all during Eelam War 2 and 3 back in Tamil Eelam. I guess the reason why there is a sense of panic and like the spree of selfish behavior amongst people at this time is because not everyone knows the difficult and quarantine sort of life that millions of people experience across the globe, because it's not something that's discussed in the mainstream media, because they don't care about it when it happens in what they called in a third world country. And they always have made this sort of emergency situations and struggle seem like a distant lie to us and others who live in first world countries. Because, you know, they have their capitalist greed and consumerist interest. So yeah, it's not a surprise. I actually just want to reassure to the young people here and the abled people that are falling prey to this panic buying that please don't, and all of this is actually going to be okay. I know this because I survived this sort of similar situation without having electricity, fridges or freezer to stock food, cars to mobilize swiftly from one place to the other, social media, internet to call for help, of course not telephone lines, landlines, mobiles, none of that. No stock of cash for buying things in stock. There was no medication, fuels or candles, batteries, or they were very limited. And yes, schools were shut down. There was no hospitals or on-call doctors readily available in these areas. And there was no pharmacies. There were hardly any hospitals in each villages. But guess what? We survived it. And we survived it many times. And we did not turn on each other. We did not loot. And we didn't leave anybody behind either. There was not enough stock. Bear in mind, there was not enough stock during these times. And eventually, at times, there was none left as well. But we survived because people knew how to share and look after each other. I remember that our families would share the biscuits, sini buns, sweet buns, and roti with other displaced relatives and other people. And the same, other displaced families and relatives, they would share like soaps, like jaggery, karapatti, batteries, kerosene with each other. When we didn't have kerosene, we'd use torches with batteries, and when we didn't have torches or batteries, we would use kerosene, lamparne, for our lamps. And more importantly, more than all of this, we didn't actually fear our fellow citizen. Of course, we feared the genocidal Sri Lankan regime and the authorities, but we never feared our fellow citizens. At times, we would move from one village to the other without barely carrying any of our belongings. And the villagers would welcome us with open arm and hearts. They would provide us shelter. We'll build the shelter together and make a place there. I remember there was this one time a family moved displaced from another district, from Jaffna, and we built a shelter for them behind my grandparents' house in our land. And they lived there for many years. One of their child was actually born and brought up in that house as well. And this one time I witnessed a child being carried on one shoulder and a grandmother on another by another young family member crossing a fence whilst there were shelling and bombing in our yard. And I was being carried away by my father. We did that because we didn't leave anybody behind, even in the least hopeful moment. We shared the very little that we had with each other. We shared the bunker spaces, the underground bunker spaces when we were hiding from these aerial bombings. We even shared the last sack of rice that we had with each other. People had time to stop and help each other, even when they were running for their lives from a falling shell and bomb. The situation here, there is a high rate of survival rate, even if you are infected with this virus. In a war-torn climate, it wasn't like that. There was no guarantee that we were going to survive that bomb. But I watched people remain kind towards each other, even when the government and authorities were not. So, please, don't hoard. Don't panic buy. Don't be selfish. Please don't resort to looting as well. Please check up on any elderly neighbors that you may have, or any other elderly people that you know of, or any families with a large number of children that may be struggling at this hard time. Please, last but not the least, please remember all these frontline key workers that are out there every day looking after these vulnerable people and affected people. Remember that they don't have the luxury of queuing up outside a store for hours in the morning to get hands on the basic necessities that they need for them and for their children at home. Please look after those that are looking after all of us in this doomed time. Right, and just one last thing as well. Yes, the governments and these superpowers may have their own agendas. There are so many conspiracy theories about this virus already. Yes, the government is corrupt, the superpowers are corrupt, but there would be nothing more corrupt than a heart that watches another human being suffer right in front of their eyes. So please, choose your agenda to be kind and actually look after each other.